recording there. Okay, good. Just some announcements. I will obviously have our final table next week. That'll be all good and done. I will get you who made that table, and I will probably message you privately if you want to join or not. A simple yes or no is fine. Gift cards will still be offered. We'll do the 10, 20, 30, but there we will definitely require, if you want to be eligible for gift cards, you will have to have paid dues, and we have kept track of those pretty well. The other thing, more generally, it's October 6th. We're less than 30 days away from Election Day. Do your civic duty. Go vote, absentee, in person. Be safe, but do that. I just wanted to promote that, just to all be good civic people, basically. And that's all I got. So I will turn it all over to El Presidente or El Vice Presidente, whoever wants to talk there. But thank you guys for listening.
Warren, you got anything today, or?
I do not. Welcome, everyone. Happy to get to the tables, but go ahead, Cole.
All right. So today I have a very exciting Live at the Bike hand. Let's see. Can everyone's? Oh wait, here we go. Can you all see the YouTube?
Looks good.
Okay. So I don't know if how many of y'all have seen the Live at the Bike episodes, but they get into some crazy hands, and there's this guy, Garrett Adelstein, who he likes to have the most money at the table, no matter what, even if it's 2,000 big blinds or more. So this hand is kind of an example of like some like crazy deep stack poker, where like I don't know, basically crazy things can happen. This hand is really a bit of a cooler, but some really interesting things happen. So I think it's a good hand to just kind of go over. And if at any point anyone has questions, just unmute and ask. So
far I cannot hear the audio. Sometimes you have to share your audio, like in the share screen.
I had it muted. Can you hear it now?
Not right now. Here, try this. You can pause the video. Go to share screen. And usually it says, you're like kind of the sharing thing. Try clicking a few options, but there should be something that says share computer audio. And that will allow you to do it.
Okay. I think I got it.
Excellent.
Y'all hear it now?
Now you're good.
Okay. So, so in Under the Gun +1, Garrett opens to 600. So I'm assuming they're playing
1-2.
Where's that? Did you say something?
I was wondering about the blinds.
Yeah, so I think they're playing
25, 50?
50, 100, 200.
Okay.
Or maybe 50, 100, 200. Since Garrett's opening to 600. I'm assuming he's just doing a 3x open, which is pretty standard. And then you see this player, Smiley, calling with sixes. That's standard. And then Andy has pocket kings in the cutoff. Definitely a hand that you're going to want to 3-bet. And Andy and Garrett have played like a ton of poker together. And they're both like super aggressive players and have super wide ranges. And as you can see, Andy also has like $80,000. So like in a game that's normally 50, 100, like Andy has 800 blinds and Garrett has 750 blinds. So some seriously deep stack poker. And he goes with a 4x size, which makes a lot of sense when you have a call in the middle. You usually want to do 3x, but for each call in between, you add on like a multiple. And then if you're out of position, I usually add on an additional one. But he's in position, so 4x is good. And then so kind of the first interesting thing happens here in a second. Garrett's going to 4-bet, which I think is fine. But we'll wait until after he actually does it.
Not me, man. 30 years strong. No Valentine yet.
Here we go.
Why start now, you know?
The battle we have all been waiting for, and Garrett's going to put in the 4-bet here with jacks.
So Garrett 4-bets to 9,600.
4x as well.
Yeah, so that to me seems like a lot. Like, I guess it might have something to do with like these big pairs play better with like a lower stack to pot ratio post flop, just because it kind of gives less room for like fancy moves if you have like a lower ratio of like stack to pot. So that's like a good reason to go big, but also like this is just so big that like you're just going to fold out so many of Andy's bluffs. So like, I don't know. I personally, when I 4-bet and 5-bet, I'm usually doing like 2.5x or 3x, usually less than 3x, just because when you 4-bet or 5-bet, you're basically saying like, I have a really good hand and that range should be really tight. So you can give your opponents like a pretty good price to call. But this is kind of like just like a huge, it might have something to do with the fact that he's out of position, and being out of position when you're super deep and with a hand like jacks, that kind of sucks. Which I think is also a good reason to just call the 3-bet. Now, like if you call the 3-bet, you're kind of under repped. But when you do a 4-bet to this size and get called, it's going to be pretty hard to navigate post flop, at least I think. But obviously Garrett and Andy play extremely high stakes cash, and they're going to be pretty familiar with like how to navigate in position and out of position.
Smiley quickly gets out of the way with the 6s.
Andy's going to make the call,
Tabletop winds
which I think
down.
is good, because once you like 5-bet, I don't know, if you like 5-bet and then get 6-bet shoved on, like you kind of have to call it off with kings
These players are sitting.
against somebody like Garrett, and you don't necessarily want to be getting like, 700 or 800 blinds in pre-flop. I mean, this is already this 4-bet is to almost 50 big blinds, so that's like pretty serious amount of chips. There's already over
$20,000.
there's already over 100 effective big blinds in the pot.
Being
So
massively deep here. Garrett with 66,000 and Andy with 76,000 in a set versus set.
so this is a pretty cooler spot, and I wouldn't be showing all this hand if it was just like they got all the money in, because that wouldn't be very exciting. It would just be a cooler. And so both of these guys obviously very happy with their hands.
This deep. And these players have played some
And so
crazy
Garrett as the
hands
4-better,
versus each other.
this board
The
favors
past
him a
few
lot. He
weeks.
obviously has all the kings and jacks and aces, as well as
All that
ace king
leveling, and now both these
for
players
value.
finally smash a
And then
flop.
sometimes you might have a hand like king queen, or like a ace 5 suited that he decided to 4-bet. But generally, this is going to hit his range super hard, and like this is going to be a board that after 4-betting, he's going to c-bet for a small size 100% of the time. And so here's where, like, for Andy, it's really nice to be in position here, because he's always going to c-bet, and you can always make sure that a bet goes in by being in position. So like on the turn, if he checks to you get to bet, rather than like if you're out of position and you check, he might check back and then you lose out on a whole bunch of value. So that kind of illustrates part of the
Bet
importance
of
of
7,000
being in
and a
position.
call.
And then, so the queen on the turn is actually not like the greatest card for like either player necessarily. Just because like if Garrett was
Ace 10.
4-bet bluffing, a really good 4-bet bluff is ace 10, basically any Broadway ace. And also if he had pocket queens, well, actually it'd be pretty good for Andy if he had pocket queens right now, but you know, he could also have pocket queens, c-bet, and turn the set, which obviously Andy's still ahead of that. But ace 10 getting there
Not
is
turn
like a
card
bit of
necessarily,
a
but
scare
that
card.
both players love because 9-10 gets in there, and ace 10.
Right, and I don't know if you heard that, but
Not
the
too many
announcers talk about
9-10
9-10,
combos should be 4-betting pre-flop.
which when there's that big of a 4-bet
So
pre-flop,
We've seen both these
No
players
way.
go a little wild with
there
ace 10,
shouldn't
so
really
ace
be
10 is
many like
definitely
9-10. I mean, these guys are
available.
crazy. Like I would not put it past them to put like
But I'm
call
pretty
with
sure these
9-10
players are
suited
gonna
in
rush
a
to get all the
massive
money
4-bet
in.
pot sometimes. And so Garrett goes pretty small again, which is like if he had like ace 5 suited or something, he might still decide to bluff with that hand, because now he has like a gut shot to the nuts.
Garrett with
But I don't
about
know, when you have
14,000.
like a set, you know, you're going for value.
Andy with a flat. This pot has 62,000.
And now the river, they both vote
$300
up.
in the pot.
So you know, you would expect all the money just to go in. There's
Andy with
like
just under
Andy
pot size
has
bet.
he actually has a little bit more than this
Both players
effective.
with
I don't
full
think the count was
houses.
quite right, but he basically has a pot size bet behind.
There's no way out.
These big chips are the 5,000, and then the greens are 1,000, and I think these are 500 probably. And then these red and whites are 100, just to give you an idea of like when they put out the chips, like how much they're betting.
And a 4-bet pot, these rangers should hit this board really hard, just as they have. But between these players, usually they have wide ranges in these spots. Usually trying to one-up each other, but here they actually have nutted hands versus each other. And Garrett
Just
bets
a little $30,000 with 6
and
chips
Andy
right there.
with around 25,000
It's almost half pot,
on
right?
top of that.
Yeah.
Even with 45K behind, it seems like he has so many chips. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's a shove, right?
Yeah, and obviously Andy is just
all
kind
in
of
from Andy,
Hollywooding
and here
for
we
a
go.
second, not snapping all in. And
If you
so
notice, Garrett does
now
not
Garrett's
snap.
going to go like deep in the tank here. And so from Garrett's point of view, this is actually it's going to be 35,000 because Andy actually has 10,000 more. But it's going to be 35,000 to win a pot that's going to be, you know, like over 180,000. So he's getting like an incredible price. Like he needs to be good here less than like 1 in 5 times or something like that, I think. So if we start thinking about like combos of hands, like what combos of hands is Andy going to be bluffing with? Does anyone have an idea? And Andy's the guy that might have bluffs here. But just like, what do y'all think a good bluff candidate would be on this board?
So do
I
you
would
think
have
he
no
could
idea
be
from
doing
the
ace
XL.
X's?
You could have like
Um,
ace king.
Yeah, so ace king could be
King
like
X.
an okay bluff. But really the number one, like ace king would be pretty good because you block
Is it ace 10?
pocket kings. No, ace 10 is I think would be a much better bluff catcher. But the most obvious bluff hand is going to be king jack on this board. because you block the full houses. So like basically, if you look at a solver for this hand, it is like something like 80 to 90% of the time you should be like raising with King Jack as a bluff on this river. But you know, when you're giving the guy like 35,000 to win 180 something, it's not a spot that anyone is really going to have bluffs. And Garrett has pocket jacks, so that leaves one combo. Or actually, no, Andy can't even have King Jack of Hearts because the King of Hearts is on the board. So for Andy to have King Jack here, it means he would have had to call with Jack of Hearts and then one of the three remaining kings from Garrett's point of view. So basically like a unsuited King Jack, which is not very playable and not what you want to have in like a 4-bet pot. Y'all see how because he has two black jacks here and there's a King of Hearts here, Garrett can eliminate like King Jack of Hearts as one of the bluffs.
Gotcha.
So there's no combo of King Jack suited, which Andy shouldn't really have King Jack offsuit here.
But could King Queen be a possibility? Very unlikely,
King Queen
but
can be a possibility, but you lose to King Queen. Because basically,
what do you?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Cole. What do you think? And we can finish, I guess, Andy's train of thought. But I'm also curious to what Garrett's train of thought was betting the 30,000 to begin with, like whether it was like a blocker bet or not. Kind of like knowing that Andy only
Probably
had
just value.
No, that's just straight value. That's like half pot. I have a full house. I can get called by maybe ace king, maybe ace queen called on the flop because it was a gut shot and you have like the best high card hand possible, and then you turn a pair and then river trips. So going for value against ace queen, ace 10, you definitely want to be going for value against. Maybe a super sticky ace king, although I gotta believe that ace king is probably folding on the river. Although I don't know, these guys are kind of wild. And then once in a blue moon, maybe Andy has pocket threes. There's another hand that it was actually a 5-bet pot where Garrett 5-bet with ace 10 off and Andy called with pocket twos and called like two massive bets on the flop and turn, and then the river went check check and Andy won like 100K with pocket twos in one of these games. So these guys definitely have like wider ranges than you would expect. So it would be a real disaster if like Andy did have pocket threes here and then Garrett ends up folding and Andy was shoving for value with pocket threes. But I don't think Andy would shove for value with pocket threes just because of Garrett 4-betting pre-flop. Like he can have all the boats and he can have quads. So you're not really getting called by worse if you shove with pocket threes in Andy's shoes. So Garrett can basically eliminate all the bluffs because there's no like suited king jack. And then, so he does have to think about like ace 10. Is ace 10 going to shove for value? And kind of for the same reason that pocket threes wouldn't. I don't think ace 10 would. So that kind of brings it down to he loses to queen jack suited. I think there's a combo of queen jack suited. Yeah, queen jack of hearts is out there. And then he also loses to all the combos of king queen. And he loses to pocket kings and pocket queens, which are like all very possible in these 4-bet spots. So I'm going to skip through some of this.
Range could have quads.
Because basically they're counting up all Andy's chips. And Garrett goes through like all his time bank chips.
More just about.
And let's see. Garrett does end up folding though, which is crazy. It's really kind of like a ridiculous fold that I don't think anybody, like nobody really makes this fold. But Garrett
has
has
35,000.
He's super aggressive, but he also is able to find the fold button. And so this is kind of an example of like when even though he's getting an incredible price and he has a full house, like most players would just like probably not even think about it and just throw the call in. It's important to realize that this is a spot where like Andy literally doesn't have bluffs. Like we talked about the bluffs he could have, but because like there's no king jack suited, and like if you really break it down, like no one's really bluffing if they're raising you and you're getting like 5-1 on a call on the river, basically. Like there's nobody that's like pulling bluffs like that just because it's not profitable, because people just call because it's too good of a price. And so if you can kind of realize that, you can break down the hands, and like there are no value hands that you beat with pocket jacks here. So Garrett ends up laying it down.
Garrett says fold, only having to risk 35,000 to win.
So Andy wins a huge pot, but he kind of like I mean, he wins a huge pot, but he left 45K on the table basically. Or well, I guess he only had 35K more, but like he definitely I think probably should have put a raise in on one of these earlier streets, and then probably could have gotten all the money in. But it's really just much more of a hero fold by Garrett than anything. But I don't know. Any thoughts on that hand?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Andy just called the turn because it was like 14K into like.
I would have raised her.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, and I mean even the flop, like you do lock up so much of the board, but like these guys just are so aggressive, like playing pots with each other, that it's probably a good idea just to go ahead and raise your super good hands. But also there is an aspect of Garrett does kind of just blast away like all three streets sometimes. But I think you are right on the turn when he only bets 14K into like, I think it was like 31 or something, or maybe 35. That'd probably be
it was like 1/3 pot. It was like 1/3 pot.
Pretty small though.
Yeah, so that's probably, I mean, obviously ace 10 is scary, but you have pocket kings.
Yeah,
you have top set.
You're sucking out of anything.
But I don't know. I just thought that was a pretty interesting hand, and like a pretty good example of like being very disciplined at the table, and not just like being like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like how am I beat here? But really like stopping and like thinking about it, and like, what is he really doing this with? And like, you know, if there was like if this 3 was a 10, then I think Garrett would probably call, because then Andy might have like pocket 10s. Although I don't even know. He still might fold.
And that's the thing. I mean, when that queen comes in on the river, it's all of a sudden Jacks is the worst full house. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And like no one's raising something worse than a full house for value on the river.
Yeah, which is why I thought it was strange that Garrett bet 30K in the first place, and just, you know, kind of knowing that he would just have to snap out. Because that's the thing, right? Is like if we were.
Yeah, it is crazy that Garrett didn't go all in. It is crazy that Garrett didn't just shove, because it was like a pot-sized bet. Like most people are just going to shove there.
Yeah, but like if you have jacks there and the queen comes in, you're like, holy shit. Oh, well, excuse me. But like you lose the queen jack, you lose the king queen.
Well, I think it is important to go for value on the river. I think it would be like it'd be pretty disastrous if like let's say you check and then the guy checks back like ace 10 or something. Like that it would suck to not get value from ace 10, or maybe even ace king, you know, maybe ace king Like I think it's definitely possible to get called by ace king on the river. But I don't know, because you unblock top pair, so it's a little harder to go for thin value when you block some of the other value. But since you unblock so much of like the weaker value hands, I think it is really important to go for value.
So I want to propose a hypothetical matchup, and I'll explain to everyone why I'm making this matchup. So Cole, as you described, Garrett wants to buy in way over the top, more than the cap. So what if we had him versus our good friend Varun, who's always min buying no matter what? Who would win there? And the pot odds say Garrett, but you don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I got to believe that Garrett would crush Varun. No offense to Varun, but Garrett has been playing the
He's
small
got the
stakes
years
he's
and
probably
experience,
played
for
in the
sure.
last 2 decades is 5,100. So
Yeah. Fun fact for everybody: Garrett Adelstein was on Survivor Cagayan. So he was on Survivor and was the second boot. And his tenure is actually amazing. He blows up his game pretty darn well, but that is for another day. That was an awesome lesson. Thank you very much. I think that was pretty darn good. Anything else that anybody wanted to say before I took the rug out from under them?
What was the second over set?
Yeah, it said then set over set again in the next hand.
I think it was actually like very. It could have gotten like way more out of hand. Let's see.
4-4.
Wow, that's pretty surprising.
7-7 4-4.
I think this is a graphics error. Because I think this raise is really just a straddle, and then that's a limp, and then this is just going to be an open to 800, not a 3-bet to 800. So 4 is opening from the cutoff makes sense. The third blind, I guess that's the straddle calling, and then the limp are calling. So this immediately kind of tells me. So this is like a good thing to pay attention to. Whoever this Smiley is probably one of the fish in the game. Like limp calling ace 10 suited. You definitely just want to be opening ace 10 suited. +2. But anyway, okay, so look at that set versus set. Surprise.
Bottom set over mid set, or mid set over bottom set.
Oh wow, so it actually checks around.
Oh,
And then okay, this
Is
is
5?
This is why it's underwhelming, because now 5 makes it straight.
Only that big of a pot then with a set over set. That's funny.
Okay, and so this Smiley guy is actually leading out, which if you actually think about the hands that people limp call with, this guy's probably not thinking like this, but this isn't like a terrible spot to bet out when it checks around on the flop and like this is the board. A lot of hands that people limp call with are small pairs and like suited connectors, basically like some big implied odds hands, but they don't really want to come in and raise, which is kind of like the opposite of ace 10 suited. But so I don't know. Kind of an interesting lead spot, but as you can see, both these guys were checking. Maybe they know that this guy is just like way too aggressive since he's like one of the fish, it seems like. So they're trapping him.
And how to commentate the next hand after that sick hand.
But the 6 does kind of suck because now you
Garrett
can't really raise your set.
make some sick folds. Just
But
add
they both
that one
call.
to Garrett's resume.
Okay, and he gets quads on the river.
Chris here now with
Yeah, I remember because I watched this video earlier and I was like, how did they not get it all in?
And John actually has a full house as well.
Check. Nah.
So,
I was reading the chat.
yeah, so now Chris decides to lead, which is definitely what you want to be doing because a 5 might check now. And also, if this Smiley guy is just taking a bunch of stabs, you're gonna want to have like some basically float leads to try to steal the pot, and then obviously you want to have some float leads that are very strong, like quads, which is always nice to just have.
I didn't realize.
And so
this
now
was
Smiley
set for
has
set as
like a
well.
very easy fold. That was like about 3/4 pot, I think, or was that? Yeah, that was like 3/4 pot.
And John Cohn with just a call.
Yeah. So it is pretty crazy that John just calls on the river. But I mean, this is kind of the same scenario. Like if you raise, like what worse hand is calling you? You know, you have the worst possible boat. But yeah, this spot, when it checks around on the flop, I think this is like a pretty easy call on the river. But it is important to not overvalue this full house. You always got to think about, like there's two sides to it. Like you might think you have the best hand, but you also have to get called by something worse, you know? So you can't just always bet because you think you have the best hand. You also have to be able to get called by worse.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, I think it's time to have some play.
Some play, yes. And I do have a table set up. It is in the VC text on our poker. And I have 10 people in, so we can all gather around one table and we should be all good to play. So I will see you guys over on Discord.